Christopher Bell holds off guys like Chase Briscoe and Tyler Reddick in an epic battle to win on dirt. Let's talk about this year's Bristol Dirt Race. Happy Easter Sunday, everybody. Welcome to Dirty Air. I'm your host, Alex Lambert, and let's talk about this year's Bristol Dirt Race, the third race on the dirt configuration at Bristol, and tonight was no disappointment. We saw some great action, some great battling throughout the entire field, and what I thought was a really good finish at the end of the race. The beginning of the race, we had a bunch of lanes. You could use the top. You could dive bomb down to the bottom. At the end of the race, we started to see where the top lane come in as the dominant lane, and you kind of had to use that lane. We'll break all that down. We'll break down Christopher Bell's win. We'll break down the finish. And, of course, we'll talk about some guys that had really good days. We'll talk about some guys that had not so really good days per expectations. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get right on into it. We got to start out by talking about the winner. Christopher Bell gets what will be his fifth career win and his first win this season, and obviously his first win on the Bristol Dirt Race configuration. And he'd had to hold off a couple of guys that were charging at him there late in the race. We had Chase Briscoe on a late run, trying to get past him, just couldn't quite clear him. Once again, that top lane was coming in at Bristol. You couldn't use the bottom as much anymore, so Chase Briscoe would try to get down there, but couldn't quite pull it off. And then, of course, ended up getting involved with an incident with Tyler Reddick. That allowed Tyler Reddick, those two battling it out. That allowed Tyler Reddick, who was probably a little bit faster than both of those cars, to able to catch those two race cars. And then Tyler Reddick on the final restart with under 10 to go at the end of the race, the very end of the race, it was Christopher Bell versus Reddick. And then, unfortunately, we had a big crash in the final lap, causing a caution where Tyler Reddick couldn't quite dive bomb it in there to at least try to make it a race with Christopher Bell. And I'm not sure he was going to be able to get to him anyway because Christopher Bell was really fast, holding him off on the old tires. That was a really good dirt race. It felt like a dirt race watching it on TV. I enjoyed it. And let's go ahead. Let's talk about that finish. Let's talk about the wreck. Obviously, we saw. Let's just take a look at the wreck here. You see. Once again, this is the final lap. You see Daniel Suarez get turned. Multiple drivers involved in this crash. Huge wreck. Hard hits there for Ross Chastain in the one car. He ended up sliding up the racetrack, throwing the caution flag. So that was a bit unfortunate for the race. We wanted to see that race go green. That was a really fantastic finish. Final corner we could have been setting up to see. Not too sure. I guess we'll never know. But, that's 2 years in a row now. Tyler Reddick has had the chance to get the win on the final lap and didn't get it. Obviously got wrecked last year, and Kyle Busch barely beat him to the line a year ago. And then this year has a chance to dive bomb in there, at least make it a race for the win. Even if he didn't get it, at least make it a race. And then, unfortunately, we have a big wreck, and the caution comes out on the final lap, ending the race a little bit early. So that's a bit unfortunate for Tyler Reddick, but really fast on dirt. If we do go back to the Bristol Dirt Race next year, which we don't know if we will yet or not, definitely watch that 45 Toyota because he really knows how to get around this place, and he run really well today. He knows how to tune that car up. Was really fast all day long, and a solid second place finish for him. But let's go ahead and let's take a look at the top 10. Let's go through the whole top 10 list here. Once again, we talked about Christopher Bell getting obviously his fifth career win, excelling him into the NASCAR playoffs this year, guaranteeing him that spot. But Christopher Bell has kind of guaranteed himself as the best Joe Gibbs Racing driver. This is the first win for Joe Gibbs Racing so far this season, and I'm sure it won't be the last, but Christopher Bell has kind of showed that he is the top guy at Joe Gibbs Racing. Kyle Busch is no longer there. Denny Hamlin, right now at least, isn't the top driver. Didn't make the Final Four last year like Christopher Bell did. Hasn't got a win yet this season. Hasn't been running as consistent this season. Mark Truex Jr. has been really fast, but having some issues. So Christopher Bell, and then obviously you have Ty Gibbs, the rookie, trying to show, just his rookie season, still getting used to things. But Christopher Bell has definitely shown that he's the top guy at Joe Gibbs Racing right now. And I'd say he's an outside championship threat. He made the championship 4 last year. Definitely want to watch Christopher Bell this year. He's so consistent. And that's really good because even when Christopher Bell has a bad race, he's able to capitalize and at least get a solid finish out of the day. And once again, you put Christopher Bell up front, put him up front with a strategy call. He was able to hold him off on older tires for a long period of time. He led 100 laps in this race, so essentially dominated the second half of the race. Big win for Christopher Bell tonight, I think, and it's good to see him back in a victory lane. I believe this is his first win since Martinsville in the fall last year. Tyler Reddick, obviously a second place finish. Talked about him trying to catch him there at the end, just couldn't get there. It was really fast. Tyler Reddick led 69 laps today, so another one of those drivers that was fast out front for a majority of the race. Got put in mid-pack during the stage breaks and the pit stops and all of that. He got put in the mid-pack. It took him a long time to catch up, to get back up to second place to where he could battle it out, and then just didn't have enough laps there to be able to get around him. And then, of course, the caution coming out on the final lap didn't help with that situation either. Austin Dillon, he was in the top 5 a majority of this race. Maybe there was a couple of times with the strategies going on that he wasn't, but he was about a second, third place race car all day long. He's about second or third all day long, and that's really good for Austin Dillon, considering how he's not really shown that much speed this season. He was fast at Daytona, got caught up in an accident, and did not get a good result back in the Daytona 500. But ever since then, I haven't really seen Austin Dillon doing a whole lot. Kyle Busch obviously was got a win in Fontana within an RCR car. Kyle Busch been running decent. But Austin Dillon, I haven't seen him in the top 15, top 20 for a majority of these races. Good to see him show some speed on the dirt track tonight, and a solid top 3 finish for Austin Dillon tonight. So trying to turn this not so great start to the season around for Austin Dillon. Finding some speed. He was you could tell by the way he was driving that race car. He felt comfortable with the car, which I just haven't seen out of Austin Dillon much this season since that Daytona 500. So good to see him, get back in some sort of rhythm, to have confidence in that race car, and to have a fast race car for Austin Dillon. Kyle Busch was fast as well. Get to him in a little bit later what happened to him. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., another solid day for Ricky Stenhouse Jr. I believe that's 2 top 10s in a row for him. So Ricky Stenhouse Jr. having a really good season. Obviously his Daytona win, his top 10 last week, and then his top 10 today. So obviously a fairly good start for that 47 car, that 47 Chevrolet. Chase Briscoe, I talked about him. He was one of those drivers that was kind of trying to get the win, was trying to find a way to get past Christopher Bell. Not sure if he was going to be able to, even if the race did go green all the way. But then, like I said, that allowed Tyler Reddick to get up there. A few problems for Chase Briscoe, hit the wall, and I think he had some problems after that when he got mid-pack that they missed on the broadcast. But was able to get up to a 5th place finish, and considering the season that Chase Briscoe's having, unloading off the truck, unloading at the racetrack, really slow sometimes, and in the 20th, 5th place race car in practice, it's good to see Chase Briscoe finally get over that hump, get a solid finish. Chase Briscoe finishes 5th tonight. Another one of those drivers that was racing for the win a year ago. Justin Haley, the way I like to explain him is if you give him a 10th place race car, he'll finish 6th or he'll finish 5th. And he does that tonight. Finishes in the 6th position. Justin Haley will take a good race car and get a better finish is the best way I can explain him. There'll be sometimes you don't see Justin Haley in the top 10, top 15 the whole race. He sneaks up there at the end, takes advantage of others' misfortune, or just somehow finds speed and gets a 6th place finish. So maybe a bit of an underrated talented driver, Justin Haley there, able to make the car faster during the race. Good to see him get a 6th place finish. Another top 10 for Justin Haley on the season for that colleague racing 31 car, trying to overcome the dramatic point situation that I don't think every fan quite understands right now. So good to see him overcome that. For colleague racing, get a 6th place finish. I didn't see AJ Allmendinger the entire night. I'm not sure where he finished at, but was not in the top 10 for a majority of the race. Didn't really know he was there. Colleague off to a rough start to the year for sure. Martin Truex Jr. was able to get a solid 7th place finish. He's had a rough couple of weeks considering how fast he's been. Threat to win every week. And then just has problems at the end of the race. But he does have a solid 7th place finish tonight, being your second Joe Gibbs Racing Toyota in the field, finishing 7th. Todd Gilliland, solid day for Todd Gilliland. Been getting a couple of good results this week. I believe this is his not his first top 10 of the season. I believe this is his second top 10 of the year. So good to see Todd Gilliland getting some good results. He was in the top 5 on a strategy call that put him in the top 5, staying off pit road, but he was obviously fell back a little bit. Didn't have that much speed in the car, but was able to take a solid 8th place finish, and I'm sure he'll take that any day. So good day for Todd Gilliland. Kevin Harvick, once again, his final season, was able to come up there, get another top 10. Harvick's been in the top 10 a lot the last few weeks. Gets a solid 9th place finish tonight on the dirt track in Bristol. Ty Gibbs, and I believe this is his 4th top 10 in a row. I believe he's been in 10th place at all 4 of those finishes. Yeah, and Ty Gibbs has been one of those drivers where kind of quietly getting good finishes, quietly getting way better every week. This is still the first half of the NASCAR season, his rookie NASCAR season. I know he raced a majority of last year, but not a lot of experience for Ty Gibbs. For him to already be cracking the top 10 somewhat consistently, staying out of a lot of trouble. You don't see him caught up in many wrecks. You don't see him making many mistakes on the racetrack. That shows a lot of strength for Ty Gibbs, and it's going to be fun to watch to see if he can improve even more. For the remainder of this season, maybe he can break out. Maybe get up closer to the top 5. That would be definitely exciting to see out of the 54 car. So yeah, Ty Gibbs, solid top 10 day for him nonetheless. Let's talk about a few drivers. We went through the top 10. Let's talk about a few drivers that did not have days that should have met their expectations. I will start out by a guy that had a terrible day. He looked like every time they showed him he was wrecking, he was in the wall, something. That was Joey Logano, your 2021 Bristol Dirt Race winner. Had a lot of problems tonight. You see here, got in trouble early. Bubba Wallace spun in front of him, got some damage on the car, backed into the sand barrels on pit road, and that was just the start. This was on lap 12 of 250. That was just the start of an awful night for Joey Logano. Got in a couple other accidents in the back of the field, couldn't get out of traffic. And then finally got involved in a wreck, slammed the wall, totaled the car out, had a lot of damage on the race car, came down pit road. He was out of the race. Joey Logano finishes in the 37th position, dead last for Joey Logano, so 1 point on the day. Definitely going to hurt Joey Logano for that 22 Penske team. Obviously was looking forward to a lot more than that. Definitely just one of those, everybody has a bad race. Really bad race tonight for Joey Logano. Just couldn't quite catch a break, and a couple other guys had bad races as well. Kyle Larson led 75 laps in this race. Looked like he was going to be a contender early on in the race. Nobody could even get close to him. We saw Reddick trying to catch him. We saw Kyle Busch trying to catch him. Austin Dillon trying to catch him in that first stage of the race in the first 75 laps, but nobody was able to kind of get close enough to him to make it a race. And then with the pit strategy, Kyle Larson got, back up through the field. Then he made a mistake. He spun out in the middle of the field, got even, lost even more position, even more into the measure. When you have good track position and you lose that and you get back in the field, your car drives a little bit differently, not as good with the dirty air, with all the dust in front of you. And then of course you're just around a lot more traffic, which hurts your line. You can't run your line. And then, you see Kyle Larson here gets in a battle with Ryan Preece. Ryan Preece was obviously upset with Kyle Larson, intentionally bangs into him there. They beat and bang, not agreeing on something. And then Kyle Larson slides up, hits the outside wall, damaged that race car pretty heavily. It doesn't look like a whole lot of damage on the race car with these next-gen cars, but a lot of damage on the inside under the hood of that race car, or under the body of that race car. And Kyle Larson got a DNF, and he has a terrible 35th place finish, considering one of those guys that could have been going for the win. Definitely had a shot to win this race, and that's definitely rough for Kyle Larson. Obviously, last week's winner, going for 2 in a row, really fast all weekend, was really fast in his heat race, really fast all weekend long, and he gets out, caught up in a wreck, finishes in the 35th position. Another driver that looked to be pretty fast, definitely wasn't as fast as your Christopher Bell, your Tyler Reddick, or your Kyle Larson, but Kyle Busch was having a solid day, in the top 10 most of the day. Once again, another one of those drivers that was, I think, restarted like outside the top 15 on the final, or on that final run on the restart in the final stage where he went down pit road, came up fairly quickly, got in the top 10, got in the top 5, looked like maybe this guy can make it in a race. Kyle Busch coming up through the field, then something goes wrong. I believe they said it was something in the rear of the car, snapped, something broke. He was losing a ton of position. Then he tried to come down pit road, spun around, and a DNF for Kyle Busch as well, which is really unfortunate. A 32nd place finish for Kyle Busch, although he was able to get 14 stage points in the race, I believe. I believe it was 14 stage points for Kyle Busch, so that helps him out a little bit. Obviously, some stage points for Kyle Larson as well. The only driver that didn't get anything out of the day was Joey Logano. Just an awful day from start to finish. Denny Hamlin, another one of those guys that we were watching today, one of those drivers that we always keep an eye on, got caught up in some trouble early, was able to come up and get a 22nd place finish, which was fairly solid per the situation he was in, but unfortunate Denny Hamlin finished in the 22nd position after a lot of trouble. We had a lot of damage on that race car. The front end was tore up on the Denny Hamlin machine. Obviously, a lot of other drivers had trouble in this race as well. Had a few single car spins, and of course we had the big wreck on the final lap as well. And that Bubba Wallace wreck, by the way, Bubba Wallace was able to come back up and get an 11th place finish. So solid day for Bubba Wallace to overcome some adversity, get up there to the 11th position and get a somewhat decent finish. So the main conversation this week has obviously been, should we return to the Bristol Dirt? That's been a main conversation since we went to Dirt on Bristol back in 2021, 3 years ago. And I don't have a direct answer because this race to me was really good. I really enjoyed this race, and I thought it was a lot of fun to watch. I like watching it on Sunday night. Easter Sunday night was always enjoyable to me. The race was pretty good. I thought it had a decent flow. The only problem really was the single car spins and throwing cautions for them. I didn't like that aspect. Couldn't really get in the middle of the race, at least. Couldn't get a really good flow of the race. Didn't like all the single car spins. That was obviously a bit frustrating. But overall, I thought the race was definitely really exciting to watch. The finish was really good. Watching Tyler Reddick try to catch him, and it felt like a real race. It felt like an actual dirt race, or it felt like a exciting race. It felt like it was in the driver's control how this race ended up, and in the team's control how the results of this race obviously finished. So I liked it. I'm kind of in the middle. If they don't go back to Bristol Dirt next year, go back to regular concrete Bristol, which I don't know if they'll do that. It won't upset me. If they do race on dirt again in Bristol, it won't upset me. So it's one of those rare instances where I'm kind of in the middle. You know, whatever NASCAR decides to do, I'm all for it. I don't know if they'll go back to Bristol in the spring next year. It'd be weird not having a spring Bristol race, but the grandstands just look awful. And I know they hold a lot of seats. They have a lot of people at that racetrack, but the grandstands just, that's one thing that was kind of bothering me through the entire race. All year this year, we've had really good crowds at every racetrack. I know Richmond wasn't full, but still a decent crowd. Bristol, just with all the seats they have, just to not even be half full just can be really frustrating sometimes. But that's really the only downside about this race, that and the caution, single car spins. But overall, I really did enjoy the race. I had a fun time watching it. Didn't spread off too long. I think 250 laps is obviously a really good distance. But that's it. That's really all there is to talk about tonight's dirt race at Bristol. I will be in Martinsville next week. So if you're waiting on Dirty Air a little bit, it'll probably be a little bit later, maybe closer to Monday morning or really, really late Sunday night. But keep an eye out for that Martinsville race review. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'll try to post some updates on YouTube, Twitter, something like that about what's going on with my situation being at the race. Hope it's a lot of fun. Definitely next week I want to watch those Joe Gibbs Toyotas. I want to watch Christopher Bell, your defending winner at Martinsville from the fall, and then I want to watch Denny Hamlin as well. Obviously, another Joe Gibbs Toyota. He had a lot of speed, but just could not get things figured out on pit road for Denny Hamlin last year at Martinsville in the fall. So definitely watch those two guys next week. So it should be a lot of fun. If you like the video, like and subscribe. I really do appreciate it. And of course, about Kyle Busch's issues tonight, let's get rowdy.